Ooh, that was fun. Pretty good.
What do you think?
We continue our Lenten season of recovery as we focus on health as essential to our spiritual lives.
Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
Prolonged times of difficulty can impede our ability to stay creative. The picture of our lives is dulled, and hope for a brighter future can fade. We need a touch of inspiration to awaken us from our sleep as we hear in one of this week's healing stories. We also awaken to our agency to seek out the divine healer, reaching out to touch the power we know can restore our intellect and imagination. We emerge ready to re-engage with the world, seeking and seeing solutions, creating different pictures of life, renewed just as a mosaic artist creates beauty from broken pieces of glass.
Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come. Vessels holy and whole, broken,
Hi friends, it's Mr. Mark, and it's time for a puppet show. Now I've got some bad news and some good news. Okay, first the bad news. I forgot to bring the puppets. Okay, everybody say, Mr. Mark, who forgets the puppets at a puppet show for children? Well, apparently I do, but I've got some good news. First of all, I brought some stuff. That's not great news, but the really good news is you're here and you have this wonderful God-given imagination, and you're going to help me see the stuff and what I brought, not just for what it is, but for what it can be. And the first thing I need you to do is help me get this story started, and we're going to start it with that classic story beginning, once upon a time. Let's all say that together. Once upon a time, I was in the savannah of East Africa. I had been out all day. I was hot, I was tired, I was thirsty, and I was so hungry. And I called to the animals, 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 animals. Will anyone share your food with me, me? And guess who answered me? Nobody, nobody, nobody. So I took my kettle, I went down to the river, I filled it up with water, and I put it over a crackling fire. And when that water came to a boil, I went down to the river and I got a small stone because I was going to make my special recipe for stone soup. When I drop the stone in the kettle, let's all say plop together. Ready? Here we go. Plop! And I waited. Well, it wasn't long before guess who came out of the river? Oh, Mr. Mark. Yes, Crocodile. What are you doing? Well, I'm making stone soup. Stone soup? Well, what's in it? Well, right now, just water and a stone. Huh, sounds kind of crunchy. Yeah, well, maybe I could share something in the stone soup. Oh, Crocodile, that would be wonderful. What do you have? Well, I've got a squash. It's long and yellow and, oh, there it is. Crocodile, I don't think you're supposed to talk with your mouth full. Now, when Crocodile drops the squash into the kettle, we're all going to say, plop. Ready? Plop. Mr. Mark, may I have some of the stone soup when it's ready? You sure may, Crocodile, and thank you so much for sharing. Yay! Oh, so we were starting to have some soup. It was starting to smell good. And that's when she flew down out of the tree. She'd been hanging upside down all day. Mr. Mark! Mr. Mark! Hi, Bat. Well, what you doing? What you doing? Well, Crocodile and I are making stone soup, and Crocodile just shared a squash. Ooh, maybe I could share something. Oh, that would be lovely, Bat. What do you have to share? Well, it's brown and lumpy and rhymes with tomato. Do you know what that is? Now, what rhymes with tomato? Did you say potato? Good. Yes, it's a potato. Let me go get it. Now, when the bat drops the potato into the kettle, we're all going to say, plop, plop. Mr. Mark, may I have some of the stone soup when it's ready? Yes, you sure may, Bat, and thank you for sharing. Yay! Oh, this soup was starting to smell good. Oh, the potato and the squash, and that's when we heard, boom, boom, boom. Mr. Mark! Hi, Elephant. What are you doing? Well, we're making stone soup, and the other animals have shared. Wait, I can smell it. There's a squash and a potato, and is that a rock? Well, technically, it's a stone. You know, maybe I could share something for the stone soup. Oh, Elephant, that would be great. What do you have? Well, it's round and red and rhymes with potato. Do you know what that is? I think we all know what rhymes with potato. It's a tomato. Let me go get it. Boom, boom, boom. And when the elephant drops the tomato into the kettle, we're all going to say, plop. Mr. Mark, may I have some of the stone soup when it's ready? You sure may, Elephant, and thank you for sharing. Yay! Oh, we could smell it. It smelled so good. We could practically taste it, all those flavors coming together from all the animals sharing. And that's when, slowly, Scoot, steadily, Scoot, Mr. Mark, hi, Snail. What you doing? We're making some stone soup. Oh, it smells so good. Yes, well, all the other animals are sharing, and hey, maybe I could share something. Oh, Snail, that would be lovely. I've got some noodles. Let me go get them. Scoot, scoot. Okay, so here's the deal. Snail is going at snail's pace, which is perfectly appropriate. He's a snail. But we need to move this story along. Did you know you have a magic button behind your right ear? Press it and make the snail go really, really fast. Ready? 1, 2, 3, press it. Quick, press the button again. Press the button again. Plop. Mr. Mark, may I please have some of the stone soup when it's ready? You may, Snail, and it is ready now. Yay! So all the animals, crocodile, bat, elephant, snail, and I, all got to share some delicious stone soup. And more importantly than that, because we each shared what we had, we made more than soup. We made friends. Bye, friends.
Hear these familiar stories of healing from the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 5. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue, a man named Jairus, came to him and fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is to the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she might be made well and live." So he went with him. Now a large crowd followed him, and they pressed in on him. And there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many different physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. And she had heard about Jesus. And she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately, her hemorrhage had stopped. And she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And immediately, aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned around and looked in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And the disciples said to him, "You see this crowd pressing in around you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" Well, Jesus looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He looked at her and said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Well, while he was speaking, some people from the leader's house came to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing this, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? This child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Well, then he put them all outside. And he took the child's mother and father and those who were with him and went to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years old. At this, they were overcome with amazement. But he strictly ordered them that no one should know of this. And then he told her, "Give her something to eat." After Jesus' boat landed on the Sea of Galilee, he began walking through a large crowd who had come to see him. Have you ever wondered what kind of security bubble Jesus must have had around him? We know that he had some disciples with him. You can imagine them forming a moving wedge ahead of their master, opening up a space for him to walk. It's a good deal less sophisticated than the Secret Service agents with their mirrored sunglasses and talking into their sleeves, but it got the job done, first century style. And Jesus needs this day for someone to run interference for him because he's on an urgent errand. There is no time to lose. He has just received a message from Jairus, a high synagogue official. The man's 12-year-old daughter is ill to the point of death. Will Jesus come and heal her? Of course, Jesus will. Everything we know about Jesus says that he would do this for anyone. But this is a man of great personal influence and power. He's a mover and shaker in his community, and his influence may even spread further than that. If Jesus had a public relations director, he would make sure that Jairus' visit was a top priority. This all demonstrates how rapidly Jesus' stock is rising in the eyes of his fellow Jews. Mark tells us that Jairus falls at his feet and begs Jesus to heal his daughter. This was beyond extraordinary. The leader of the synagogue was an important man. For one man to prostrate themselves before another was a sign of absolute subservience. For the leader of the synagogue to do so demonstrated that Jesus was nearly without equal because of his reputation as a healer. So on that day, more than most, Jesus was a man on a mission. You can picture him striding purposely down the street, his disciples calling out, make way for the rabbi. And around them, there is a surging crowd with voices that are calling out, hands that are reaching out to touch him. It's holy bedlam. And within that rowdy crowd, there's a woman. Not powerful or famous, but one who has a very personal reason for seeking Jesus. This woman is sick. She's been sick for 12 long years. She spent all of her money on every sort of doctor, but no one's been able to help her. Perhaps this new rabbi, with his famous healing powers, perhaps he's her last hope. The woman's medical disorder also had implications for how other people treat her. Mark tells us that the woman was suffering from hemorrhages, or what some other translations call a flow of blood, for many years. What Mark means is that her monthly period was continuous. The flow of blood never ceases. During their time of the month, women in the community at that time lived in semi-seclusion. Their physical relationship with their husbands was suspended. They were considered ritually unclean, according to the law of Moses. Orthodox Jewish communities in Jesus' time contained a building called a mikveh, or a ritual bath. At the end of their time, women went down to the mikveh, bathed, and were declared clean again. This means that this woman was a virtual outcast of her community. Because of her unusual medical condition, she has dwelt in an unclean state for 12 years, the same number that Jairus' daughter has been alive. Had she ever married, the marriage ended long ago. If she's lucky, her own family sends her a little bit of food every once in a while. If not, she begs on the street. And how far she has fallen. She must have been wealthy because she spent a great deal of her money on professional physicians. She must have been a woman of high social standing. In that culture, only the elite could afford to pay for physicians. But illness knows no rank. We are all souls living in bodies, and the sick among us are more aware of that fact than most. The woman with her hemorrhage is the very picture of alienation and aloneness. She wants to be healed of her medical condition, but even more than that, she wants to be reconciled with her community. to no longer be an object of shame or pity. She wants her life back. So that morning, she covers her head so no one will see her and recognize her. She slips through the front of the crowd, and Jesus' disciples in secret service mode block her way. Perhaps she falls to the ground as they pass by and reaches out and touches the hem of his garment. It's a miracle. A powerful feeling sweeps over her, and she knows in an instant that she has been healed. But then the unexpected happens. Jesus stops in his tracks, and he looks around and says, "Who touched my clothes?" The disciples don't have an answer. Despite their best efforts to keep the crowd away, some have reached through his security cordon and have touched him. But at that moment, Jesus isn't interested in lots of people. He's concerned only for the one who has touched him and was healed. Jesus' question is a testimony to the power of human touch. The disciples miss this point. Their bafflement at his question shows that they think their leader, their Lord, has been talking about something ordinary. But Jesus knows otherwise. This touch was significant. It was heartfelt, focused, and more than a little desperate. He cannot continue on his way to heal Jairus' daughter until his interaction with the healed woman is complete. Fearfully, the woman steps forward and identifies herself, and far from being scolded by Jesus, he blesses her. "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Daughter, he calls her. Not the typical form of address Jesus uses when healing someone, but he's not only healing her body, he's also healing broken relationships. He's welcoming her back into his own spiritual family. Go in peace. What blessed words for a woman who has known so little peace for such a long time. Now, as for the other leading character of the day, the 12-year-old daughter of Jairus, she does die. In part, this is because Jesus tarried to talk to the distraught woman and heal her and hear her story. But he continues on to Jairus' house anyway, even though everyone tells him it's no use. There he raises the little girl from the dead. He's the Son of God, after all. And the love of God is without limit. It's not even limited to death. Just because one person receives the gift of God's love doesn't mean that the supply of love for others is any way diminished. So there's a familiarity with these healing narratives this week. We know that Jesus heals through touch and that faith can make us well. But this narrative has some distinct features. First, Jesus has the power to heal not only illness, but the power to overcome death itself. A second way that this story is unique is the way that it weaves together the two stories of healing, the revival of the girl and the healing of the hemorrhagic woman. The characters in the story are quite different. The man that Jesus follows is a powerful man who can interrupt Jesus' dinner to make a request for help. The other is a woman from the outside who merely reaches for Jesus' cloak as he passes by. The story about resurrection is interrupted by and interpreted through the story of her being saved. The two stories are connected. The woman, stripped of both her social status and her finances because of her affliction, is also dead to her community. The child, too, has died. And I would imagine that the father would give both wealth and status to have prevented that. These actions connect the stories of the daughter and the woman to the salvation story of Jesus' death and resurrection. Images of death and destruction do not have the last word. Jesus breaks through to give new life. Sometimes it can feel impossible to imagine that we might emerge with new life, with vigor, with creativity in these exhausting times. The woman's hopes had been dashed many times as she sought cures for her illness. Jairus was told, don't bother the rabbi, it's too late. But there is a glimmer of faith. The woman reaches out to touch his coat. Jairus and his wife follow Jesus into the dead child's room. And we too can see the beginnings of hope peeking through. Just as the first crocus and daffodils have popped from the ground. Still, it can feel like winter in our lives. Do we really have the energy to start again? But creativity can also happen when we must prune and cull and prioritize because we're exhausted. What do those seeking Jesus' healing give up? Pride on the part of Jairus, perhaps? Wealth and position of the woman? What things have we been holding onto in our lives or in the lives of the church just because we've always done it this way? In what ways is Jesus calling us to new life? In this season of recovery, what is being reawakened in us and in our communities? What is being saved and for what purpose? What will we do with our newfound healing? What will we leave behind and what new things will we usher into our lives and into our communities? Let us step into the future with the faith and trust in God who desires us to go in peace and be healed.
In your love, make us whole. May we rest in your compassion. Calm the lost, weary soul. In the warmth of your love, may your peace fill our hearts. Jesus, by your grace you console. Make us holy, make us whole.
And so we come before you and pray the prayer that your Son taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We have been so blessed by God. Let us give back to God as we give our tithe and offering. How do we do that? Well, click on the donate button on the front of our web pages. Or you can mail us a check.
I dream of a church where everyone is welcome. I dream of a place we all can call home. I dream of a world where justice is flowing, with hope and peace growing, and God's will is done. I dream of a church where everyone is welcome. I dream of a place we all can call home. I dream of a world where justice is flowing, with hope and peace growing, and God's will is done. Make it so. Make it so. We're grateful that day. Make it so. We dream of a world where love reigns among us, and your will is done. Oh God, make it so. Oh God, fill our hearts to reach out and welcome. Make us to see your vision once more. Let's dream of a world where our hands are your hands. We offer ourselves. Oh God, make it so. Make it so. Make it so. We're grateful that day. Make it so. We dream of a world where love reigns among us, and your will is done. Oh God, make it so. Make it so. Make it so. and your will is done. Oh God, make it so.
Now go with confidence that we will awaken, we will seek out and reach for the healing solutions that our neighbors, our community, and our world needs, recovering our depth of love for all and our joy of living in this world. May the words of Jesus ring in your ears. You are not dead, you are sleeping. And may the Spirit hover, move, and deliver salve to your soul and a spring in your step. Amen.